the budget. Yeah, we'll start building next week. Okay. I think it's time to go ahead and get started this morning. No one's listening. I'll get everybody to settle down. People are happy to see each other this morning, which is understandable. It's a beautiful day today. Good day to be together. We're in Genesis again. We've had a couple weeks off, so we're going to recap a little bit of where we were because we were right in the middle of kind of the good story that's unfolding with Joseph. So let's go ahead and everybody just go ahead and turn to Genesis chapter 42. And I'll just read 1 through 28. We'll just, as kind of a recap of all that's going on, because that's kind of the beginning of this section. Now Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, and Jacob said to his sons, "Why are you staring at one another?" Then he said, "Behold, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us from that place, so that we may live and not die." Then 10 brothers of Joseph went down to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, "I am afraid that harm may befall him." So the sons of Israel came to buy grain among those who were coming, for the famine was in the land of Canaan also. Now Joseph was the ruler of the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brother came and bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he disguised himself to them and spoke to them harshly. And he said to them, "Where are you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." But Joseph had recognized his brothers, although they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had had about them, and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to look at the undefended parts of our land." Then they said to him, "No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies." Yet he said to them, "No, but you have come to look at the undefended parts of our land." But they said, "Your servants are 12 brothers in all, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." And Joseph said to them, "It is as I said to you, you are spies. But by this you will be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you that he may get your brother, while you remain confined, that your words may be tested, whether there is truth in you. But if not, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies." So he put them all together in prison for 3 days. Now Joseph said to them on the 3rd day, "Do this and live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined in your prison. But as for the rest of you, go carry grain for the famine of your households. And bring your youngest brother to me, so your words may be verified, and you will not die." And they did so. Then they said to one another, "Truly, we are guilty concerning our brother, because we saw the distress of his soul when he pleaded with us, yet we would not listen. Therefore this distress has come upon us." And Reuben answered them, saying, "Did I not tell you, do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen. Now comes the reckoning for his blood." They did not know, however, that Joseph understood, for there was an interpreter between them. And he turned away from them and wept. But when he returned to them and spoke to them, he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, to restore every man's money in his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. Thus it was done for them. So they loaded their donkeys with their grain and departed from there. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his money, and behold, it was in the mouth of his sack. Then he said to his brothers, "My money has been returned, and behold, it is even in my sack." And their hearts sank. They turned trembling to one another, saying, "What is this that God has done to us?" Okay, so that's where we were a couple weeks ago. Up to this point, the famine is severe. Jacob tells them, "Hey, why are you just sitting there staring at each other? There's grain in Egypt. Go get us some food, because we're just sitting here starving." And so the 10 brothers go. They meet with Joseph, who's in charge of everything, especially distributing the grain. And he recognizes them. They don't recognize him. They are kind of puzzled by, what's transpiring. They talk amongst themselves, and you can still see that the guilt is still with them from what they did with Joseph, just by their just how they talk. Joseph's using an interpreter. He's not speaking to them in their language, even though he understands it. And he hears them say, that again, the sin is on them because they sinned against Joseph and sold him. They're still distressed, and Reuben, as the oldest, he's the one most responsible, I guess, as far as the brothers, the eldest brother. But I don't know. It's interesting. His comment is, "Didn't I tell you, don't sin against the boy?" During that time, he did say not to kill him, but was he really that vehement as far as not sinning against Joseph in there? He says it kind of takes like I was responsible. What do you think?
Probably not.
Probably not. Then it didn't seem like it at the time. This is 23 years have passed since they sold him, but he really didn't take all that on himself as far as not. He did keep them from killing him, but he's not as innocent as what he might say. But he does say, we shouldn't have killed or gotten rid of him, and he understands that the reckoning for his blood is coming on him now, or on all of them now. So that's where we were. Let's go ahead and read the rest of the chapter and see, as they bring the grain, they have the food from Egypt. They also have their money that Joseph had put back in, and now they're going home and to tell their father what had happened. And you remember, he wasn't real pleased with them just sitting there to begin with. We'll see how things fall out now when they return. Verse 29, when they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, "The man, the Lord of the land, spoke harshly with us and took us for spies of the country. But we said to him, we are honest men, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest is with our father today in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, by this I shall know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me. Take grain for the famine of your households and go. But bring your youngest brother to me, that I may know that you are not spies, but honest men. I will give your brother to you, and you may trade in the land." Now it came about, as they were emptying their sacks, that behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were dismayed. And their father Jacob said to them, "You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more. You would take Benjamin. All these things are against me." Then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, "You may put my 2 sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my care, and I will return him to you." But Jacob said, "My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If harm should befall him on the journey you are taking, then you will bring my gray hair down to Sheol in sorrow." Okay. So Jacob, his response to their proposal as far as taking Benjamin, his answer is, well, look, Joseph's gone, Simeon's gone, and now you want me to give up Benjamin as well. We know that the one wife that he truly wanted was Rachel. Joseph was that first favored son, and then Benjamin was the son that she bore on and died right after childbirth. he's basically the only son that he favors. And what the relationship is between Jacob and his other sons, I think it's always been kind of a strained relationship. I mean, he cares for his sons, but he definitely had his favorites and his favorite wife. He absolutely does not want anything to happen to Benjamin here. And the other part of this you can see is that losing Joseph, or Joseph being sold into slavery, has kind of been the defining event for all of their lives, the brothers as well as for Jacob. It's 23 years have passed, and he is not, he certainly has not gotten over it. It's kind of defined how his attitude, his thoughts, and we haven't really seen a lot of what's happened with Jacob from that point up until now, but that pain is still there. That the anguish of losing that one son, and the brothers also, that guilt and that their actions, the sin of their actions, has carried with them up to this point as well. How is it that guilt, how can it fester and carry on for 23 years? I mean, we see it with their actions. What do you guys think about that, as far as that guilt and doing things in such a terrible thing? How does that weigh, and what does that do to a person through their lives?
That's a big question.
It is a big question.
Yeah, that is. It could be guilt, it could be grief, and it doesn't really stop. It continues.
For Jacob, certainly it's the grief of losing that son, and that grief. I mean, it's 23 years, but it's still as raw, and it's still there, even that long. And the brothers also, that guilt has been eating at them for that long as well. Anybody else?
Well,
Go ahead, Mark.
You know what strikes me most about these verses, and Joseph's reaction. He could have said, "Hey brothers, don't you remember me? You sold me into slavery 20-some years ago. Good to see you. Let's get back together. How's Dad?" But he didn't. He I guess, kind of messed with them. Said, "You guys are spies, and I'm gonna, hold you accountable." I don't know. It makes me think. He was still thinking. It was a major event in his life too, but was he doing this out of retribution, or just to see if he could get the family back together? Oh, bunch of.
Well, it's one thought. I mean, he's trying to get that youngest brother and do that. But as he turns and away from them, he actually, I mean, his response is it's a very emotional one. And in verse 24, it talks about he turns away because he hears them talking about their guilt, their feeling, and he actually weeps, hearing their response. So for him, that, I think the forgiveness is there, and he wanted to see what their reaction would be. Because he recognized them right away, knowing where they come from, and how they talk. It is. It's his. He's not going to just let him. Oh, it's, hey, great to see you. Here's some food, and yeah, let's. How's Dad doing? He doesn't do that at all. It's more of here. Let's. Mess with you a little bit. After 23 years, I mean, and it wasn't an easy 23 years, certainly for Joseph. He spent, time as a slave in a dungeon. He's elevated because of God, but yeah, it's a tough place for him to be. Judy?
The guilt, back to that point, it would be hard for them. I I would think, if I were in their shoes, it would be very hard for them to forgive themselves because their father, the grief and the guilt goes hand in hand because the father is grieving continually. And when you see that every day, you can't fix it. You know it's your fault. So until he's okay, they can't let go of that. Or that's how I would feel. I wouldn't be able to let go of that. So, yeah, I think that's why you couldn't let it go.
Adam?
I think he was checking to see if his father was still alive. Maybe he didn't have much interest in just reconciling with the brothers because they did him dirty. So maybe finding out that his father was alive, that now he has a chance maybe to reconcile with his father.
His father, yeah, he certainly, I mean, his father had him as the favorite, and he's remembering Benjamin when Joseph was given up. He wasn't part of that as far as selling him off to slavery. Benjamin would have probably been 10 or 11 years old at the time, so he was not part of getting rid of Joseph. So yeah, he's trying to find out. Okay, how's my father? Where's my youngest brother? Yeah, where are they at in this? But yeah, he's certainly putting them to the test and trying to see what's happening. Yeah, Troy.
It's been 23 years since all this started. Perhaps Joseph was not messing with them so much as trying to measure the men they were now, as opposed to the men they were 23 years earlier. We do change.
Yeah, God was certainly with Joseph through that time. Was he still with the brothers? What was their attitude towards God at this point? And yeah, were they remorseful? Were they repentant from their actions?
You just have to spend a little time with somebody to get a read on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry?
I have another take on this.
Okay.
I think that the brothers had already put all of these events behind them. And if they hadn't been faced with the possibility of losing their last brother, I don't think that they would have cared all that much. It was just there to get grain, and they were only remorseful after the fact, after they realized that, first of all, Simeon's not going to go back with him, but they want them to bring the other son, and they know that Jacob can stand that. So that, to me, those 10, 15, 20 years since they sold him into slavery, they might have had a guilty conscience from time to time, but you don't see it. I mean, it's never expressed in the Bible that it really bothered them all that much.
Okay. So we know it certainly Jacob. It was tragic for him, and that grief was still very real. But the brothers.
If they were really that upset, they would have went back and tried to find him. 10 brothers could pitch a pretty good battle if they wanted.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah, Reuben's response. Didn't I say don't sin against him? I mean, and the blood is on their head. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they probably weren't as sorrowful. I mean, probably some guilt crept up, especially as they saw their father. It's hard to say where they were and what their relationship was with God would determine a lot of that. We don't know. It's been 23 years. You can grow. What is their relationship with God? What's been their relationship with their father, and how has that gone? As they as it relates to as Reuben, as they're speaking to their father and saying, "Hey, we need to take Benjamin," he does offer his own two sons to be put to death if he doesn't bring Benjamin back. And now, was that so they can get Simeon back? Is it so that they can get more food? Yeah. He at least doesn't want his father to suffer anymore, and so he's willing to take that on himself as far as his own sons as payment. I don't know how that really helps. If Benjamin doesn't come back, then Reuben loses his 2 sons. Not sure how that helps the situation for anyone, but it's an interesting offer anyway. Any other thoughts on that? I think the interesting point, I mean, there is this grief, this guilt, and it was kind of the defining event, certainly for Jacob, absolutely for Joseph, obviously, and the brothers as well. Their interactions, we don't see again their any of their interactions with God. We see how Jacob has dealt with this through the time, and it's a tragic situation. Again, God is all this is working out. God has a plan, and it's working through that in this long period of time. But in God's timing, it makes sense, or He's using these bad events in order to set forth His plan. But for the people involved, it can be very difficult. And I think that's true for our lives as well, as you deal with just the ups and downs of life, and certainly terrible, tragic events. How can God use those events in our lives? How can good come of such things? And we know it can, even though it can be difficult, it can be hard, and certainly for them, it's and especially for Jacob, it's been again an ordeal for the 23 years. Let's go ahead and read on as let's carry on with this. So they've got the grain, they've got their money. Jacob's saying that there's no way that he's sending Benjamin to go back. Well, let's see what happens, verses 1 through 10 of chapter 43. Now the famine was severe in the land. So it came about when they had finished eating the grain which they had brought from Egypt, that their father said to them, "Go back, buy us a little food." And Judah spoke to him, however, saying, "The man solemnly warned us, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you do not send him, we will not go down, for the man said to us, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.' Then Israel said, 'Why did you treat me so badly by telling the man whether you still had another brother?' But they said, 'The man questioned particularly about us and our relatives, saying, "Is your father still alive? Have you another brother?" So we answered his questions. Could we possibly know that he would say, "Bring your brother down"?' And Judah said to his father Israel, 'Send the lad with me. We will rise and go, that we may live and not die, we as well as you and our little ones. I myself will be surety for him. You may hold me responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame before you forever. For if we had not delayed, surely by now we could have returned twice.'" So the famine is so severe. They finished all the grain that they had gotten from their first trip. So again, they're sitting and staring at each other. They know where they can get food, but Jacob has told them, not that they can't take their brother, but here that they're, hunger is a great motivator, I guess, as far as changing the path that you're going to be. He was so stern when they had first come back with the food. There's absolutely no way that they could send Benjamin. But now they're faced with the reality that all of them are going to die if they don't go back and get the food. I mean, even Benjamin's going to die of starvation. So, really, what choice do they have at this point? He has to send him. He has to go back. Mark?
They just kind of forgot about Simeon. He must not have been that well liked. He was still back there in jail.
Yeah, he's still back there, but there's food there though, so he's faring better than what they are, perhaps. Yeah. Poor Simeon. Yeah, we don't know a whole lot about Simeon and what's going on, but yeah, there isn't even Jacob isn't as concerned. It doesn't seem. I mean, he pretty much writes him off. Back in chapter 42, he's like, Joseph's no more, Simeon's no more, so yeah, you can't have Benjamin as well. But when you're starving, and Benjamin even is starving, you need to do something. So it's time for them to go ahead and send them all back, and including sending Benjamin at this time. So, and Judah now steps forward, and he's the one that's is saying, "Hey, I will be the surety that everything's going to be okay. Because if you don't send him, I'm going to die. You're going to die. Benjamin's going to die. Our little ones are going to die." One part about, and maybe it's just the translation. In verse 8, it says, "Send the lad with me," meaning Benjamin. How old do you suppose Benjamin was at this time? Okay, he's in his 30s. So he's a lad. We'll find out later that he's a husband. He's got 10 sons, and but he's the lad, I guess, the youngest. Any youngest children here? You're always you're the lad. You're the young one. You're the baby forever. But anyway, he's a grown man with 10 kids. So I find that striking. This whole time, they keep referring to Benjamin as just this the young one, the lad, the youngest, and I guess once the baby, always the baby type of thing. So just a little side note. That one was for free. Yes.
All of the Bible school material
Mm-hmm.
that you used to get anyway. Remember when you had flannel graph and we had, although they always picture in this story Benjamin as a boy of about maybe 14 or something, real fair, real young, real slight.
Yeah.
That's how they always picture him.
And that's exactly the children when you're teaching the young ones the Bible class, and as we bring it up, yet you see that you always hear it, and they kind of refer to him as that child, the young, and stuff. You don't see him as a grown man with a family, and that's what he is. And we'll see that again here in a few chapters when they all go. Yeah, I think he's got more kids than any of them. He's 10 sons, and they all have really interesting names, by the way. But yeah, he's not the little child. And when Joseph was sold, he was 17. You kind of think of him with the many-colored coat as kind of a, young little kid also. But anyway, reality is always different than the little stories. Okay, back to it. There's instructions that if you're going to take Benjamin, you're going to go back to Egypt. We need some careful instructions here. So 11 through 15, we see the instructions that Jacob sets forth. Then their father Israel said to them, "If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best products of the land in your bags, carry down to the man as a present, a little balm, little honey, aromatic gum and myrrh, pistachio nuts and almonds. And take double the money in your hand, and take back in your hand the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks, perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother also, and arise, return to the man, and may God Almighty grant you compassion in the sight of the man, that he may release to you your other brother," now Simeon's finally part of it, "and Benjamin. And as for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved." So the men took this present. They took double the money in their hand, and Benjamin. Then they arose and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. Okay, the instructions. Take not just the money, take double the money. Take the money that was accidentally put in the sacks. Maybe it was a mistake. I'm not sure how a mistake like that could be made, but maybe it was. Then also take a present to the man, and then you can take Benjamin as well, and maybe that other brother, maybe he can be released. So they do this, and they head back to Egypt. 16 through 25. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to his house steward, "Bring the men into the house, slay an animal, make ready, for the men are to dine with me at noon." So the steward, now Joseph has a steward, isn't that, it's interesting where Joseph's at this point. The man did as Joseph said and brought the men to Joseph's house. Now the men were afraid because they were brought to Joseph's house, and they said, "It's because of the money that was returned in our sacks the first time that we were being brought in, that he may seek occasion against us, fall upon us, and take us for slaves with our donkeys." So they came near to Joseph's house steward and spoke to him at the entrance of the house and said, "Oh, my lord, we indeed came down the first time to buy food. And it came about when we came to the lodging place, we opened our sacks. Behold, each man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full. So we have brought it back in our hand. We have also brought down other money in our hand to buy food. We do not know who put our money in our sacks." And he said, "Be at ease, do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money." Then he brought Simeon out to them. Then the man brought the men into Joseph's house, gave them water. They washed their feet, and he gave their donkeys fodder. So they prepared the present for Joseph's coming at noon, for they had heard that they were to eat a meal there. So they're to go to Joseph's house. Imagine it's probably a pretty nice palace. The steward meets them, and they don't really give an opportunity here to, for any questioning. They think they're being brought in because they had kept the money. So they just confess everything immediately and just kind of spit it all out there before anybody can say anything. And they also make sure and tell them, and we've got a lot more money. We're in inclusion. So we're innocent, great men. And the steward immediately answers them, says, "Be at ease, do not be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, has given you treasure in your sacks." And he brought Simeon out to them. So obviously Joseph's talked about God with his house steward. He knows that of their God, and he also knows the God of their father, and relays to them, comforts them, saying, "Hey, this is God's doing, that you had your money there. In fact, I put it in there, and this is not a trap. You guys you're not in trouble. You're just supposed to come and dine with Joseph." What do you suppose is going through their minds at this point, as they're hearing these things, and now they're going to go have a meal with the Egyptian ruler? They're trying to get some food, buy some food, get their brother back. What's going through their minds at this point?
Probably think they entered the Twilight.
The Twilight Zone episode. Did they have that back then?
That's about right. They were so afraid before, disbelief.
Yeah. Total disbelief, confusion, wondering what's about to happen. Go ahead, Judy.
I've been doing this study on prayer, so it made me think of the prayer that Jacob had in verse 14. And so for Reuben, I would like to think that he maybe thought, oh, he's answering Dad's prayer, and to see that come to fruition, to have a prayer like that, that's exactly what he prayed, is what's happening.
That God would have compassion on that. Grant them compassion in the sight of that man, whoever that may be. So yeah, it obviously appears that God is working here, because what else would explain the attitude or what's going on? They thought they were in a lot of trouble, and now they're being invited for supper. So confusion time for them, certainly. Any other comments? Okay, let's go ahead and we'll read the rest of the chapter and see how the meeting, the lunch, how that goes, this meal. When Joseph came home, they brought into the house to him the present which was in their hand, and bowed to the ground before him. Interesting, they're bowing to him. Where have we seen that before? It was just a dream, right? Anyway, so they bowed to the ground before him. Then he asked them about their welfare and said, "Is your old father well, of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" And they said, "Your servant, our father, is well. He's still alive." And they bowed down in homage. So then now they're bowing down again. As he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, he said, "Is this your youngest brother, of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "May God be gracious to you, my son." And again, he's speaking to them through an interpreter. Doesn't mention that there, but he is still using an interpreter for them. But he sees Benjamin. The last time he saw Benjamin was, like we said, about 10, 11 years old or so. Benjamin's, again, a man, in his mid-30s, older, certainly a lot older. I'm sure he's changed quite a bit. He's not like the flannel graph, the little willowy kid that we've seen. It's a grown man here, but this is his brother. His only full brother. And so Joseph immediately then, he runs out of there. So verse 30, and Joseph hurried out, for he was deeply stirred over his brother, and he sought a place to weep. And he entered his chamber and wept there. So we've seen Joseph, and this is the second time now that he's wept, that his response as he sees his brother. Again, he's still messing with him a little bit, but it seems that he has an attitude of forgiveness, of mercy, that as we just see that in his response. But he verse 31, he washed his face, came out, he controlled himself, and said, "Serve the meal." So they served him by himself, them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is loathsome to the Egyptians. So there's a distinction here. So yeah, they're all sharing this meal together, but you have the Egyptians, they're over here eating. Joseph's eating by himself, and the brothers are in their own place to eat as well. And they were seated before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another in astonishment. And then Joseph took portions to them from his own table, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. So they feasted and drank freely with him. So they're lined up. by age. The firstborn, of course, he gets the top position. The youngest is, again, according to his youth, the baby. He's at the foot of the table, maybe at the kids' table, and they're looking at each other. They're being served, and Joseph himself is actually taking portions from his table and serving them. And Benjamin gets 5 times as much as they have. Now, one thing, and it says they feasted and drank freely with him. So unusual that he would eat with them, just from the standpoint that, you know, Egyptians don't eat with Hebrews or with anybody else. It says loathsome. It's an abomination to them. Not sure what it is. They weren't, you know, as worthy a people, I guess, in their eyes. But for Joseph to do this, to actually serve them and then to feed them, and Benjamin gets 5 times as much. So he's elevating him up in front of his brothers, even though he's young. Go ahead, Shelby.
Was Joseph considered Hebrew or Egyptian at this point?
Well,
Because
he's
Pharaoh
the
recognized that he didn't serve the same gods as the Egyptians.
right. I'm saying he's considered Hebrew. I mean, he's the ruler of everything, but he's not eating with the Egyptians either. He's eating by himself. And I don't know if that was a practice that he had forever, but he's not with them as far as eating. He's separate as well. So since he's running the land, I don't think they consider him an abomination. Eating with him maybe, but they got to probably be careful as far as how they treat him, just from the standpoint he's in charge of everything. So, but that's a good question. I saw that he's separated, the brothers are separated, and then the Egyptians are to the side. And I don't know if that was the practice all the time. He does have an Egyptian wife and children, but maybe just because he's the ruler, he's eating separate. But he gives them, the Hebrews, food from his table. So probably a taboo, I guess, or, you know, it didn't bother him to eat with them, whereas it did the Egyptians. And he can do whatever he wants, because he's running the whole place.
When Pharaoh had the dream, then the baker said, "Oh, there's a Hebrew slave."
Oh, absolutely. They know exactly who he is or what he is. Yeah, they know that he's not Egyptian, but he is in charge of everything, though. So I'm sure he has certain prerogatives, certain privileges beyond what a normal Hebrew would have. Anybody else?
Joseph goes off and he sits by himself. There's probably that moment of, oh my gosh, how much time has gone by after seeing Benjamin. Probably that moment of realization.
It's been 23 years. It's been a lifetime for all of them, and his reaction from his brothers. The first time he saw them and they were talking, his reaction was to weep. He very very overcome with emotion. Now it's even worse, where he has to actually hurry out of there. He weeps. He has to gather himself, freshen up, wash his face to go back there. And then it's just like, here's food, and they're eating quite a bit, because there is this famine going. So now plentiful meals before them, and they're feasting and drinking freely. We'll leave it there, and we'll pick up. We'll finish this part next week. But thanks for all the comments. And again, the story, it's one we've seen and heard a lot, but I find it's just an interesting story, just that how these the events came to pass, and seeing how God works even over so much time. And as we go through and finish up this, but as you look ahead throughout, we see, and we have the opportunity to see God's workings in the lives of them and their descendants on down, and we can realize how then God works in our lives as well. And as you get older, you can look back and see God's plan and God's purpose. Let's go ahead and we'll be dismissed now. We'll get ready for worship time. Thanks, everybody.